Good afternoon and welcome to the March 11th, 2025 policy meeting. I appreciate everyone being here and on time. We have a lot to get through today. In our 2-hour meeting, we have over 25 policies to discuss and review. I also have asked Mr. Perry to kind of keep an eye on time for us. Committee members, due to the high number of policies, we will be closely adhering to Robert's rules today, allowing 2 opportunities for each one to discuss each topic and then voting. And that's a 5-minute maximum per topic, and that's still going to be well past our time. But Mr. Konecki, would you please call the roll?
Pete Wildeboer.
Present.
David Perry.
Present.
Judy Justice.
Present.
All right. Thank you again, board members, for being, or excuse me, policy member for being here. At this point, Mr. Perry, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Reverend Perry, excuse me, Reverend Reeves, would you please, Pastor Reeves, would you please come forward and lead us in a
Will you share your microphone, please?
Let us pray. Gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you this afternoon to pray, first of all, in this season of Lent, to help us reflect on our own lives, to think about the places that we fall short, and to thank you for your grace. Lord, I thank you for this board and for this committee. We pray, Lord, for your blessings upon them and upon their families. We pray that you lead and guide them in each of these policies and in these decisions. Lord, we pray that during this anxious time, you will bring a peace that passes all understanding. Now, Lord, we pray for all to go well during this meeting and for the Board of Education, for our schools, for their staff, for their teachers, for their principals, for the students and those parents, Lord, that will all come together, that will honor you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. And again, that was Pastor Tim Reeves from the Pine Valley Methodist Church. We certainly do appreciate you coming in and leading us in that prayer. At this point, I will take a motion to, or I will call for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
I will second.
So motion.
I will second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, like sign. Passes 3-0. Next, we will have the approval of the minutes. And I do apologize, board members, but I am going to try to rush through everything today so we can get through at least the majority of it. Approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, like sign. Passes 3-0. Just a quick reminder before we get into the policies, and like I say, roll up your sleeves because here we go. Based on the recent action of the federal, this is something we received from the NCSBA a short time ago. Based on the recent action at the federal level, the North Carolina School Board Association encourages individual school system to review their local policies, determine if policies, regulations, or processes need to be modified to comply with the directives of the new administration. Below are the policies that are recommended for each local board to review with your board attorney to ensure compliance with legal standards and guidance. So anyway, that's why we're kind of jumping into this with both feet. We will start, like I say, we have 5 minutes per each one, and then we will call for a vote on each. If we don't need 5 minutes, that's fine. We start with policy 2302, and we did review that. I didn't see any changes needed. So unless somebody would like to discuss that further, 2302, going once. Again, I'm sorry, but I feel like the guy, but we're going to go through it today. 2302, going once, going twice, going 3 times. We'll keep it as written. Unless there's an objection to that. Next is policy 3000. Is that working here? All right, policy 3000, goals and objectives. There is some change under number 6, foster respect for different cultures, crossing through the words an appreciation for cultural and ideological diversity and differences. Any discussion?
Yeah,
Okay, Ms. Justice.
I'm going to make this real easy for you today.
Oh, I like that. I like when things are easy.
Okay, I taught U.S. history for many years and civics. My father fought in World War II. My mother was a woman Marine. In fact, he fought in 3 wars. This is a democracy. I taught it for years to students, and I stressed the importance of our founding document, the Constitution, and how all laws stem from that. It's also, for good reason, a separation of 3 branches, to check each branch. Neither branch should the 3 branches should not be crossing and trying to carry out the duties of others. That is the supreme law of the land. I am not going to be a hypocrite.
I object.
I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I've been in education for almost 30 years, maybe more. We've worked really hard to get to the point where we are today. This is 2025, not 1965. The Civil Rights Act was in 1964. And a lot of what we're talking right now came and stemmed from the changes that were needed in the society badly. I told you, I taught U.S. history too. So everything that you're going over today, go right ahead and go over it. I want nothing changed. I'm going to vote against everything that's brought up because I think it's ridiculous. That, what do you call it, Dear Colleague letter has no force whatsoever in the law. That is up to the legislative branch to dictate our funding. And right now, it is tied up in court. And the vast majority of the school districts across this country are ignoring it because of that. Because most of the, well, unfortunately, it is political. I remember there was one of the lawyers last time that said, everything's political. No, it's not. Certain things aren't. And that's our Constitution. And that's the laws that we are stemming from the Constitution. Plus, that document is so vague, you don't even know what the heck it's talking about. The term diversity, that alone is shocking, that you're trying to turn it into a couple words when it's so broad. And as I said, since 1965, we've been expanding what's going on in this country, and that covers so much. Everybody in this room is different. I'm looking around at all this diversity. You can't get rid of that word. And there's a lot more that's not represented in this room. So to try to do this is ridiculous. And I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed for this country. We need to be starting acting like a democracy again. We need to stick by our Constitution. We need to uphold our laws. And we need to have some pride in that. And if we're going to be in every day in classrooms teaching our kids to do that, then we as adults need to start doing it. So I'm going to vote no on everything on here, so that's going to make your life easier.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Perry.
I see the need for us getting rid of the references to diversity, equity, and inclusion. But in this particular case, I think we are just not talking about that. It's talking about ideological and cultural diversity, which are different concepts. So I don't see the need on this particular one to revise it.
Okay. All right, well, I need a motion, so I'll make a motion. It may be defeated, but I make a motion that we move policy 3000 as amended on. Is there a second? Hearing none, is there a counter motion?
I'll make a motion that we recommend leaving it the way it is.
Okay. Is there a second on that? Leave it as it is.
I'm going to vote no on everything, so why should I even comment?
Okay. All right.
You're doing well out here. I don't know where that leaves us.
To make it easy.
Okay. Okay. I'm fine with that. I'll second that. All in favor of leaving 3,000 as it is, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Opposed?
Okay, so that passes 2-1. All right, next on our list.
3,000 will stay as
As
it's
is.
currently in policy.
Okay, I take that back. Okay,
Yeah, we didn't, with no changes.
no change. I agree with that, okay.
Okay, so that
Every
passes.
time you change,
Okay. 30, so that passes, to amend that passes 3-0. Policy 3100, curriculum development. All right, looking it over.
I don't see any edits.
Sure.
Oh, there it is at the top.
Where is it?
It's at the top
Oh,
of the
yeah,
first
okay.
sentence.
The change in 3100 shows the board recognizes curriculum development must be an ongoing process in order to address continually the changing needs. Originally it said, and diversity of all students, but crossing through the words, and diversity of. So it would read now, to address continually the changing needs of all students and to fulfill the educational goals of the board. I make a motion, we accept the amended version of 3100. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the amended version of 3100, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
opposed.
Passes 2-1. Okay. All right, this might take a little bit less time than I thought. All right, 3130. Grouping for instruction. All right. This, in the second full paragraph, after the numbering 1 through 6, race and sex discrimination will not be tolerated. Previously, it said if homogeneous grouping materially affects diversity, the person proposing such grouping must demonstrate that the benefits of homogeneous grouping clearly outweighs the benefits of meeting the board's educational goals of diversity. I make a motion that 3130 be accepted or moved on to the full board as amended. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of 3130 moving on to the board in its amended form, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Opposed.
Passes 2-1.
Can I make a statement?
Please.
This does not change the principal's authority to assign students to classes or the teacher's discretion to group students for instruction. Just to make sure that that's clear.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have 3200, selection of instructional materials. Changes in the first paragraph, replacing the word instructional materials should, well, I'll read the whole sentence. Instructional materials should represent the rich diversity of the nation and of our nation and appropriate for maturity levels and abilities of students, replacing the word diversity with heritage. And there is a second change in section 3, supplemental instructional materials. Again, changing such resources include, for example, specialized materials selected to meet diverse needs of rapidly changing circumstances, and changing that word diverse to a wide range of needs for rapid changing circumstances. I'll make a motion, we'll just keep it going the way it is, and then we can have a discussion. I'll make a motion that we pass 3200 in its amended form on to the full board. Is there a second? Hearing none? Would like to have a counter motion?
Yes, I like that we recommend that we leave as is. Again, as in the first one, I don't think the word diverse is talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So, or heritage in either section. So I don't want to just make diversity a four-letter word. The concept of diversity, equity, inclusion is one that I oppose, but this is not talking about that.
Okay. Is there a second to leaving 3200 alone?
Second.
Okay. First and second, all in favor of leaving 3200, any other further discussion? All in favor, number one, I will just say that I don't think the word heritage is a four-letter word either.
No.
And I think a rich heritage is actually a better word. So since we're looking at these
If you'd like
policies.
to make an amendment, I'll carry it.
Okay, all right, so I'll make an amendment to leave the word heritage in the first section. Is there a second? Just one of the three of us, so. Okay, so that would leave the word heritage, again, any further discussion? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, are we going to be diverse or heritage or both?
Well, this would, the amended would have, in the first paragraph would have representative of the rich heritage of our nation, but that would then still leave the word diverse in the third section to meet diverse needs of rapidly changing circumstances. So that's where we're at right now.
I actually like diverse better than heritage, so I'm not going to.
Okay. All right, so we have, the amendment has heritage in the beginning and diverse at the, under supplemental instructional materials. All in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. Now we go back to the full, that passes 2 to 1. I should get those numbers down. Now going back to the full amended, where we have heritage in the first, and we leave the third section alone. All in favor of 3,200 as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
Passes 2 to 1. Okay, 3,200. Next we have 4140.
You're looking at page 42 now.
Okay. 4140, I believe,
Hang on.
Thank you.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe there was no changes here, I believe.
Yeah, there is. Look at the first
Okay,
sentence.
let me see. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Board embraces the cultural perspectives and insights that foreign exchange students bring to the school system, instead of, again, the word diversity. I make a motion that 4140 be carried on to the full board in its amended form. Is there a second? Okay. Do we hear a counter proposal?
I can account proposal that we keep it the way it is, again, situation when I'm talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, we're just using the word diversity as how it works.
Okay. All
I
right.
think it encompasses more than perspective. When it relates to cultural diversity, I think it's a
Okay.
little bit more than perspective.
All right. All in favor of leaving 4140 alone, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No. Passes 2 to 1, so that will stay as it is. 4140. All right, school assignment. No changes were needed in this one, so unless someone wants to bring up some changes, it won't go anywhere. We don't need to bring up the full board or anything like that, but we'll just leave it as is. So 4150 stays as is. Again, last chance, 4150. Yes, sir.
Just point of inquiry, did the MTSBA recommend, or was there any, there's a little bit here for me to read all of a sudden, did they recommend to our board, did they point out a problem section?
4150, here it is right here. Section is policy about admission to magnet schools or other schools of choice, lists maintaining socioeconomic, geographic, and student achievement diversity that is reasonably reflective of the school system as a whole, as a criteria that will be taken into account while making admission decisions. I did not see that in our policy, but that's what they say.
Oh, okay, if it's not in our policy, then I don't know where to go. Okay.
Any other discussion on 4150?
There's no changes, as you're saying.
No.
Is there any,
There are districts that have specifics in their policies, which is why the NCSBA referenced it, but we don't have any in
Yep.
ours.
Right, okay. And that's correct. I didn't see any, that's why I wanted to go on. Okay. 4303, fair and consistent discipline at administration. One second, pull it up. All right, in this one, 4303, fair and consistent discipline administration. Second paragraph, the words, the board further recognizes discipline. The board further recognizes disproportionality or representation of a particular group of students in relation to their population in a school or across the school system in expulsionary discipline sometimes to be the result of inconsistent application of discipline to similar offenses and may be a barrier to the board's overall objective of promoting successful educational outcomes for all students. Therefore, striking that, I don't think there's any other changes in the section. And I will make a motion that we pass 4303 onto the full board as amended. Second.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion?
I'm going to vote against it.
Okay. All right, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Opposed.
2-1, it goes on as amended. 4303.
Chair?
Ma'am? Sir?
Gentleman here was to hit his.
Ma'am, sir, ma'am, sir?
This might, we haven't, this hasn't occurred in the policies we've looked at so far. Just want to remind the board that our policies cannot countermand things that are either in general statute or required by the State Board of Education. We may still be responsible for adhering to our disproportionality in our practices, regardless if that sentence is not in our policy or not. We still have regulations that are delivered to us by the state, by other places as well. One example is our disproportionality funding and how we're using it. So, but even with that sentence being taken out, it doesn't change the fabric of what we're required to do anyway. Would you agree, Julie?
Yes, and that is a requirement under federal regulation, actually.
Correct, thank you.
Interesting.
It would seem that the last sentence that's left in
I agree.
continues our obligation to modify, to your obligation to monitor and take action if you see.
I agree, but I just wanted to reference the fact that as we're going through these, we were trying to look at that in the framework of, does this get us a crossways in a state or a federal regulation as well? So, and I think taking that sentence out doesn't change the fabric of that for us.
Right. And I think certainly several of these policies I noticed as reviewing them, that, like even the next one we're talking about, we're not changing a lot of we're changing a couple words, but it's basically playing a lot of the same ideas. Like the last one, we still have a responsibility. This one here, the next one, which is 4310, changing the words to accept the consequences of their behavior and for all students to respect each other. I mean, to me, that's the end game, is for all students to respect each other. Not saying, well, in this case, using the word cultural diversity and ideological, so if we respect each other, we respect each other. If we don't, we don't, and we should respect each other. That's my thoughts on the whole thing, but.
Are we on
43,
are we on
4310?
Yeah.
4310. And I'll make a motion, we carry
57.
4310 as amended on to the full board. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of moving 4310 onto the full board as amended, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
That passes 2-1. All right. Parent organizations.
I didn't see any changes in this one.
Again, that's why I changed this one. I don't believe there's any changes, so again, I don't believe we need to carry this on to the full board. So unless you have something from Mr.
Same question as last time, but there's something that the NCSBA
40.
pointed out about this one.
All right, I'm going to read right out of the paper they sent to us. 5110. 5010, I'm sorry.
5010.
Let me make sure I'm on the right policy then. 5010. Consistent with the state law, the policy states the following information be provided to the Department of Administration. All legally required reports regarding contract bids and contract purchases of goods and services from historically underutilized businesses, disabled businesses, enterprises, and nonprofit work centers for the blind and the severely disabled. See policy 6402, participation by historically underutilized businesses, and legally required reports regarding the use of minority businesses in construction work. See policy 9125.
Is that in ours?
I'm sorry? That's what this, the paper from. what it says?
But I think some districts may have that as
Yeah.
a part of their policy.
Yeah, remember this goes to the whole state, so it's
Oh,
not just
so here
us.
we go, because we don't have any changes in ours.
Yeah, yeah,
So when we don't have any changes, these are coming from other,
yeah, this is all from him.
NCSBA said you need to look at these 50 policies.
yeah, I've been reading these things the last 2 days, and I'm going, this is just like,
And some of ours don't have the references that some places do.
Okay, so we're good
it
with that?
doesn't apply to us.
Leaving 5010 alone. The next one we have is 5160. Just to let everybody know, 5160, we kind of went round and round about it, and I do appreciate Ms. Gadetsky, because they label it as 5150, but it's the same policy. Reporting, the title is the same, reporting to external agencies. All right, and I believe we have some changes in here, I might be wrong.
I don't see any.
Here's the one that
Maybe
we
we don't.
don't.
These are all things that we typically normally do anyway.
Okay, let's see what they had under 50, I'll read this before you, I'm ahead of you. 5150, consistent with state law, this policy states the
5150.
information provided to, maybe I read it, you know what, I read the wrong one last time. It was 5110, so let me correct myself.
You're right.
All right, so parent organizations, I apologize, I was looking at the wrong one, I apologize. So the back to parent organizations, just so everybody knows, and I'm correct in this one. Policy considers, the policy lists under, consider the cultural diversity and economic differences of students and parents in planning school-related functions as a condition for parent organizations to operate in conjunction with the schools. This policy does not go any further detail regarding that statement. And what I just read was actually talking about 5150.
5160.
51, 50, 60. Right. Now I'm totally confused.
And 5160 just details how we coordinate with external agencies like fire department, sheriff's department, EMS, child welfare. All those things are part of what we do anyway.
You got to do,
All right, 7100.
So no changes to
No changes.
5150/60.
Right.
Got it.
7100.
recruitment.
This is mine.
I think that's one of yours. Yes, sir. So you want to?
Yes, no, I'm not recommending any changes here, not because it doesn't, there are definitely references to gender identity and things like that, but I believe, and our attorney can confirm, that this is a Title VII situation when you're dealing with personnel, and that the Bostock versus Clayton County still applies, Supreme Court decision applies to that, so we are bound to follow.
For Title VII, and I'll tell you, it's going to come up in a few minutes here, also for Title IX, you know, it's not our policy preference on what to do. You know, there's direction we get. And the U.S. Supreme Court has construed Title VII to include gender identity, not just plain old biological sex.
So your recommendation is to leave 7100 alone?
Yeah.
That was my recommendation as well.
Okay. Okay. All right. Is there further discussion if we're leaving it alone?
Sounds like the court's got some sense. Just leave stuff alone.
Okay, 7100 we will leave alone. And I do want to make a motion, and thank Mr. Perry, not make a motion, but thank Mr. Perry. He did contact me last week, so with all this in front of you, would you like some help? And so we could look over several policies, so I do want to thank you for that. All right, 7130. I guess Mr. Perry, you also had that one, I believe.
You get that one in front of me. Now, I don't know what, there seems to be some, were you able to get my, no. Do we have to do side by side, or do you have to?
Gadetsky, is there a way that you can see the changes there?
If you look under page 80, it's under H.
80.
Oh, okay, you did find it, good. Yes, so, these are the changes I'm recommending.
80 under H. So you are, could you read those to us, please, sir?
She's got it in tiny print, so I have to. In my computer, by the way, if somebody can get me a power,
I got you. Thanks, Don.
New Hanover County School is dedicated to providing equally high level of quality education in all of our schools, particularly to at-risk students with learning disabilities and academic deficiencies. Therefore, the superintendent will determine if a disproportionate number of inexperienced, ineffective, or out-of-field teachers are assigned to particular schools or at-risk students, and develop a remedial plan to address these concerns. This is a change to what was the deleted text, which is the superintendent shall assess whether the income minority, learning disabled, or English language learners are being taught by inexperienced, ineffective, or out-of-field teachers at high rates than students that do not fall into those categories, and should develop a plan to address any such disparity. So my recommend the language is in red.
Okay, very good. Okay. Would you like to make a motion?
I like the motion to change it in that manner. Thank you.
Okay. I'll second that. Any discussion?
Yeah, sure. I'm a little, I'm very concerned about the original statement was more appropriate for what goes on in schools, such things as low income, minority, learning disabled. Just putting particularly at-risk students with learning disabled and academic deficiencies doesn't really cover what goes on in our schools every day, which is why the original was fine.
I believe that, assessing, especially when you're talking about minority, now we're talking about judging on skin color or ethnicity, which I don't think we should be doing. So that's why I, generic term about at-risk children.
Mr. Waldeboro, can I comment?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Okay, every education study shows that probably one of the biggest determinations of student success has to do with socioeconomic levels. And here in New Hanover County, for example, the problem is the historic redlining, which forced these certain communities into these high poverty areas. So to leave them out is to ignoring the reality of what's causing this disproportionality in the ability of the challenges that teachers are going to be facing in the classroom. That's why actually we need our best and our brightest and the most experienced to be able to tackle those. And we know that. Again, all that's educational research. So just by putting the word at risk and another word, I can look down at it right now, that doesn't really cover what's being taken out.
We have a motion and a second in front of us. All in favor? Ms. Justice, thank you for your very valued input. I do appreciate that. We have 7130 in front of us. All in favor of passing it on? Again, please understand that we're passing it on full board. We, as has been discussed time and time again, we do not make final decisions at the committee level. We send that to the full board. Whatever we do to send it on to full board, the full board can again discuss it at length, and then bring it forth as either a yay or nay at that point. So, all in favor of pass? Yes, sir. I saw a finger up. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
There is general statute regarding evaluation and placement of teachers in low-performing schools that is also contained in this. I wonder if you wouldn't want to say, if you're going to pass it on particularly to at-risk students with learning disabilities, academic deficiencies, or in schools designated as low performing. Because there are some requirements to a low-performing school that you have to address in general statute.
And where would you put that?
I'll make an amendment to add that.
I'll second that too, but where exactly would be good to put it?
I would say particularly to at-risk students I would separate, I think to what you said, I would separate at-risk students and learning disabilities because those are not necessarily in the same bucket. So I would say particularly to schools particularly with at-risk students, comma, students with learning disabilities or academic deficiencies, and schools designated as low performing.
Did you get all that?
That's better.
I just want to make sure we have it.
Pat, did you get that?
Yeah. I'm trying to do it.
I would say particularly to schools, particularly with at-risk students, comma, students with learning disabilities or academic deficiencies, comma, or schools designated as low performing.
Okay.
I'll make an amendment to amend my, I'll make a motion to amend my original one.
And I will second that amendment, so we'll vote on the amendment first unless there's further discussion. Hearing none. All in favor of the amendment that Dr. Barnes sent through Mr. Perry, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Well, I like the amendment.
I'm sorry?
I said I like the amendment.
You can vote for that and vote against the other if you want.
That's right. I can do that.
So, I didn't get your vote, I'm sorry.
I'm for the amendment.
Okay, so yes, so that passes 3-0. Then for the whole policy, between two here, 7130, all in favor, please signify by, as for the amended version, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, that passes 2-1. 7130 goes on. We're carrying on to 7360, crowdfunding.
What page is,
Dr. Barnes?
It starts on 87, the change is on page 90.
Okay, page 90.
The fact I just had to say page 90 says something too.
Yeah, we're moving fast.
We
No, the
we
fact
lost
that there's,
a couple trees
that
on
there's
this-
90
on
pages.
this day. Well, it's a lot more than 90 pages. We're about halfway through it, 90 pages.
I need more money for copy paper.
You're not kidding. This is-
Especially for the pink, I mean the red. All right, Mr. Perry, would you like to share with us the proposed wording here, please?
yes, I'm saying that we change up the current language, which says, because in the judgment of the superintendent designee, proposed campaign will produce an unacceptable inequity in the educational environment. This is, it says now, in addition, the superintendent may deny or refer campaign because it would provide one school an unequal advantage over the districts over other district schools at the same grade level. This one's about campaigns for crowdfunding. That's what this is about. And so it gives you some discretion, Dr. Barnes, and some rules regarding what you may deny, and instead of using unacceptable inequity, which I believe is vague, it could refer to racial inequity or that sort of thing. It's just that I want to make sure that you can get, if you're going to give one school an advantage over another school, a big advantage over the other, when you have the right to deny those crowdfunding.
Sutton, would you like to share?
So just a clarifying question. So this is related to school fundraising, so I just want to make sure, we're not saying we're going to limit if one school raises more money or submits a request for fundraising, so that's what crowdfunding is, to use crowdfunding for fundraising. If their goal is $10,000, but another school, if you look at their crowdfunding, it's $5,000, we're not, I just wanted clarification, we wouldn't limit schools' fundraising ability because maybe one school isn't able to fundraise. I just want clarification on that, to make sure
I think it would be to the discretion of the superintendent. This is something that he could evaluate. If that inequity between schools was huge, then, unequal. Oh, they're getting they got crowdfunding for a whole brand new football stadium, and the other one didn't. That might be something that, Dr. Barnes want to say, no, I don't think we want to go there, because we want to make sure that all of our schools are somewhat equal as far as their facilities and things like that. But it would probably, most of it would be left in your discretion.
I'm thinking back just, in years past, I know that For instance, Laney High School has a beautiful, or had, I'm sure still very beautiful, baseball facility that none of the other schools got, So, I mean, then we say that the superintendent would be in the midst of deciding, well, how come they got one and, and it's, like I say, I'm sure everybody would love to have a great one
Well,
too. Go ahead.
I always thought this was more like extra raising like for PTAs and things like that. This is what we're talking about, correct?
I think, and I'm going to speak to a specific example, and I have Colonel Henry over there in the corner, so correct me if I'm wrong. I think what this is, the original, it's what's in policy right now, is what is written to the right, okay? I think what this is talking about is if the football team raises money and provides all new warm-up gear for the boys team, you have to have something similar for the girls team, or else you're in violation of Title IX. So I think what that is regarding specifically is that. John, would that seem right to you? Because I remember at one point, one team got a whole bunch of something, and we had to help the other team get a similar whole bunch of something so that it was equitable, or so that it didn't pop a Title IX violation. So I think that's what that really means.
Thank you for the interpretation, because I was confused. So in other words, this doesn't, what he just, and he didn't know, I mean, I'm talking.
No, I mean, that's pretty nuanced. It doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, so we'd have to leave it basically to the original for it to cover, because the grade level doesn't really fit. It would, but the original statement would. Or
I mean, you
could
could
say
change the
Title IX.
word, if you change the word unacceptable disparity in the educational environment, you could change that inequity to disparity, and it would mean the same thing. But I think that's why, if you look go all the way back to the end, if you look under the legal references, I think that's where that is popping out at.
What would you like to do?
I do want to get a head nod from it. I have to put my glasses on to see. Do you think I'm in the right space? John, does that seem right? And Julie said that's right, okay.
Just let you know, there's static for some reason. Just get a word that we can't be heard right now.
So I have a
Very much static.
question for Dr.
Yes,
Barnes.
sir.
So what is your, I mean, again, 5,000 versus 10,000, I'm not complaining, I mean.
Yeah, right.
But, what is your thoughts on, well, in this case, it's crowd raising, but, where, somebody gives some huge grant of money to one of our schools, it's going to give them, because maybe that's their alma mater, but the other schools don't get that. I mean, I just came down today from visiting New Hanover High School, and my goal is to make sure that all of our facilities are somewhat equal in good quality as far as that goes, and so that nobody can claim that we're segregating our schools, or that we treat disadvantaged students worse, and because I want every kid to have the best teachers and the best facilities that we can offer, and I don't want some rich person living in Borders Neck keep $10 million or something.
Well, see, this is actually, at first, I'm glad you clarified it about the Title IX and the situation. I was thinking along the lines of PTAs, and I'm not trying to upset anybody, but for example, Roseville Beach is extremely rich. They got over $100,000, I think, in the bank. And then you have places like Freeland that doesn't even have a PTA now. They did for a while, now it's falling apart again. And so they have nothing. But this is across the board. I just use those two extremes, but there's a lot in between. So I wasn't sure if that's what this was referring to, but apparently it's not. Wouldn't you say, Dr. Barnes, that this particular passage is not referring to what I just described, but what you had described about the Title IX programs with athletic, I guess, ability to play and have the equipment that one group does.
I'd like to make a second motion. I'd like to motion that we table this to next month, and so we can do some research. I think we could probably use some better language to describe both situations. You've got a situation inter-school, like you're saying, Title IX. Then if you read it the wrong way, and I think I read it not unintelligently, you could take it in a manner of what I was talking about, where it's this school versus that school.
Right,
So-
oh, for sure, and I think the difference is a PTA raising money, or, let's just use an example. I have a fall festival at one school, and it raises $30,000. I have a fundraiser at this school, and it raises $10,000. We, as educators, will work to balance some of those things naturally, because it's not, that doesn't create a legal precedent, right? But the Title IX thing does. So I think that it's more of a, we support schools where maybe they don't have as active a PTA as this school has. We try to make sure we're balancing that just as a matter of course. But I don't think those create a legal definition of inequity, personally.
Okay,
But we can do either one.
Okay, we have a motion right now to keep 7360 in policy. I'll second that. Any other discussion? If not, we'll keep 7360. Excuse me, we've got to vote. Getting ahead of myself. 7360 in policy. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. 3-0, go us.
And I'll ask Ashley and Julie and Colonel Henry if you guys can find a good example of what this might be, so we can bring it back to this group next month.
Okay, carrying on to 8220, gifts and bequests. That might be what we're talking about with more what my example, the gift. What page are we on, sir?
Geez, I didn't know I'm in charge of that. 98.
Dr. Barnes, would you be in charge of our page numbers?
I ain't scared, I got it.
I'm trying to stay on the computer, but these aren't. All right, any changes in this one? Oh, yeah, I see, on the second page, on 99. Uh, 99, we have changes. Yeah. It's in the second paragraph.
This is the same thing we just talked about, basically.
This is donation versus crowdfunding.
Yeah, but it's the same thing.
That's, yeah.
I'll make a motion, we keep 8220 also in policy.
Second.
Taken care by biological sex, gender.
Okay.
Doesn't change that.
Well, why don't we keep it, so we can have the whole thing, especially if it's the same thing. I'll make that motion, we keep 8220 in committee. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed. Passes again, 3-0. That's 2 in a row. Go for us. All right, 9115. We're on page
103? No,
103.
Sorry, 103, got it, falling down the job.
I made up slack.
You did it. You beat me.
You guys all need that. All right. Yes, sir?
Chair, I think this is this the one you, no, this is not.
No,
I thought
that's-
This might be the one you had asked me to look at earlier.
You're thinking of 9120, I think.
Thinking 9120.
No, 9125.
Let's see. Yeah, I got those two in front of
Do
me
we
here.
have anything for,
I don't see anything in this one.
I don't see anything on this one,
I don't remember.
So it's nothing, nada.
so we'll just say 9115 stays as is. I don't think we need to vote on that, because we're not changing anything. All right.
9120.
All right, now I know we have a lot of stuff
There's
here.
a lot in here.
Yeah, 9120,
Ooh,
and we do actually, I'm gonna start with Ms. Sutton.
is the
She
law.
has a possibility, and then we'll go to Mr. Perry after that. What page are we on, sir?
110.
110. Okay. One of those little things up in your thumb.
So for 9120, so, sorry, I'm not editing on my original copy. For 9120, the revised paragraph that was recommended, I just have a concern that that might be in violation of Title II Code of Federal Regulations and North Carolina procurement law, because there is, in those regulations, there is something that prohibits geographical preference in the evaluation of our bids or proposals. So I had provided at your seat maybe another alternative that we could consider. Thank you, I got that here, so thank you. And I, yes, it's the short,
I do. Yeah, I've got a helper over here.
so I feel like,
Can you read that out loud so that?
yes. So the proposal that I'm sharing is the board is committed to promoting fair and open competition in all bidding and procurement processes, while no geographical preference shall be applied in the evaluation of bids in accordance with federal and state laws. The board encourages participation from qualified firms based on New Hanover County and North Carolina, New Hanover County and North Carolina. The board may engage in outreach efforts to inform local firms of bidding opportunities and ensure they have equitable access to compete. So this would continue to, I guess, our continue open and fair competition. I don't think that the intent was to get rid of that priority by the board. So that's why I'm making that suggestion. And I think this, I hope, accomplishes what we want to accomplish, but keeps us in compliance with federal and state law.
Any other discussion? Perry?
I mean, I just, we talked about, what was removed here was, as you can see, is on the right. I'm not going to read it all long. But I just want to give our local community, I mean, the highest preference. We basically said we give North Carolina firms our preference. So, and I'm not saying they still got to be the lowest bid and everything else, but I think we should, encourage. We work for New Hanover County. We should be supportive of New Hanover County businesses when possible. Does that violate the law? I don't know. I guess I'll have to have our attorneys tell us that. So,
Mr. Lynch, what do you?
I suppose you could theoretically have and I didn't look at the CFR provision, but it does say geographical preferences in the evaluation of bids or proposals are prohibited except in cases where federal statutes expressly mandate or encourage it. Here, rather than setting it as an outright preference, I like the staff proposal to say, hey, we'll encourage bidding by local ones. You can still go out, you're saying it's great for staff to go out and actively solicit local participation without saying we're going to put our thumb on the side of the scale. One of the other things, some of the language in the deleted part ties in with the statutory requirement, and this statute's actually been amended twice in the last 5 years, for minority business participation goals. Minority business participation goals, the definition of what a minority is, it's not just traditional race-based, it includes economically disadvantaged without regard to race, and women. And the reason, like we had talked about earlier today, was the reason that we have that is because North Carolina general statutes require it, that we have to show that we made that outreach effort.
Yeah, and I would just, like I said before, when we were talking about the other one that will come up here probably next, is I don't think we need to follow unconstitutional laws, nor should we. And I think in addition, this is by participating in the Minority Business Association, continuing to operate on those things, we risk the federal dollars. And I think that I'm fine with, replacing my inserted paragraph with Ms. Sutton's. It seems fine to me.
Okay, so you make that motion?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll second that. Any further discussion?
It's more legal. We got to stick with the law. Yeah, as you go up the ladder, it's more, yeah, powerful, state, federal.
All right, so we do have the wording in front of us here, the proposed. Do you need a copy of that? Okay, I'll hand it to you in just a second.
I have two.
Okay. All in favor of replacing the section in policy 9120?
Was there any other changes in there?
Proposed, I think that was it.
Oh, I think I deleted the reference to the policy of minority business at the end, at the very end.
Okay, so, all in favor, okay, let's do this part and then we'll do that part. All in favor of
Amending.
inserting the part that Ms. Sutton has just added for us into 9120, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That part I don't mind doing, but I still want the original.
Okay, well, that's up to you.
Because are we going to vote on the original too then, right?
We're only voting on the
We're just,
amendment.
we're
The
just
amendment.
putting this in right now.
Okay, then I'll be opposed just
Okay,
because
okay.
I just want the original.
All right, 2-1 on that, and then the second part that you just mentioned, please say that
It's
again.
just a reference to minority, at the very end, the reference to the participation by minority business policy,
Okay,
which is,
make that motion. Is there a second? Hearing none, that's defeated. So we will move the amended policy 9120 to the full board. Carrying on 9125, here we go. We do have another paper, Ms.
I
Sutton.
just want to make sure, and it could be I missed something in the conversation. I just wanted to make sure, Mr. Perry, I think there was a change in the, under Section A, the second paragraph. I think you had a change. I just wasn't sure if that got picked up in the amendment or not. So
back
this
on
was in
9120.
policy 9120 that we just voted on.
Okay.
Under
was this?
Section A, it was the second paragraph,
I'm looking for-
second sentence.
Let me find it. Oh,
I just want to make
We
sure
deleted-
that got picked up in,
we deleted gender identity.
I wasn't sure if that got picked up in the vote or not. I just wanted to make
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
No, but we need to discuss it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, carry it.
I make a motion that we add that because we didn't do it before. Basically, I was trying to make a motion to amend my original motion, just to replace that one sentence with your suggested version, that one paragraph. And then we should have voted on the whole thing.
Okay, well, let's carry that, let's go back to that so we can get it right. So we are back on policy 9120, and what page are we on, sir?
110.
110. I do apologize for not seeing that before. I still don't see it. Oh, right up here, okay, gotcha. So, basically deleted gender identity from the paragraph preceding the one we just changed.
Oh, yeah, that.
Okay, so I did not see that. Board prohibits discrimination against any person because of race, color. Okay, so you can make a motion, please, sir?
Motion that we make the suggested change to that one, removing those two words.
Okay, I'll second that. Any discussion?
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead. Ms. Justice.
Gender identity. I'm not a scientist. This is a cultural football that everybody's throwing all over the place. I prefer to leave it there because I think at some point somebody with a lot more knowledge than we have used that term in relationship to a person's gender identity. That I'm not a scientist, and I really wish we'd stop doing things like this to upset the apple cart because it seems fine where it is. Just with the word sex. Is that supposed to cover everything? I just wish we'd leave things alone. This is just being done for cultural reasons. It has nothing to do with actual scientific fact about how humans are on this planet and how they perceive their role as a human being in whatever culture and society they live in. We are not able to determine that. Some people think they are. They can go back to 1965.
Thank you, Ms. Justice. Just want to check with our attorney, is it legal to remove those words?
To remove the word gender identity, yes, and the reason I say is because you would be tracking the statute. Remember, like Title VII, for example, and Title VI, the other federal anti-discrimination statutes don't use the word gender identity in them. Now, some of them have been, like Title VII has been construed to include that. But the statute itself still says sex. And oddly enough, in the case, when that came out, one of the dissenting arguments was Congress certainly didn't intend to include gender identity in 1964 when they passed the law, and I suspect they probably didn't. Nevertheless, it now is viewed as part of it by federal courts. So you're catching what you need to catch just by using the word sex without pulling out gender identity like it's something different from sex. That's my view of it. Now, you know, if you want to make sure you stress gender identity, we mean gender identity as part of it. Certainly be fine to leave it in there, but I think you're already covered by using the term sex.
All right. And Ms. Sutton, thank you for that catch. Appreciate that. We have a motion and a second. All in favor of deleting the words gender identity from policy 9120, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Opposed?
Passes 2-1. Now we're on 9125. Thank you again for keeping us straight. Ms. Sutton, you have another suggestion here. Would you please share that with us, and then we'll discuss what we have in the...
So if it looks like the recommendation in the handouts strikes this whole policy except for the very beginning where it just talks about the board will award public building contracts without regard to race, religion, color, creed, national origin, biological sex, age, or disability. And what I would like for the board to consider in the proposal that I provided is to keep some of the information that's in the policy so that we can maintain our commitment to fair and open competition when we're entering into the contracting process. So I've pulled out things that I think are relevant to help make sure that we're continuing that commitment, and would like the board to consider this as a revision.
Isn't this required by state law?
I was going to say, my suggestion, if it's okay, Mr. Chair, would have been to leave it as is, and the reason why is, and I brought copies of the statute for all of you. Our version of this follows General Statute 143-128.2, and I highlighted it on mine, but I'll show you where it is on this one. A local government unit, that includes us, if you receive state appropriations for a building project, and we typically will because, you know, the lottery, for example, would be state money, which is used to build things, only to build things. You have to have a verifiable 10% participation goal by minority businesses. Now, the reason that that's not a concern, equal protection wise, is if you look at the last paragraph, and as I mentioned, this statute was amended in 2023 and again in 2024, so our current General Assembly's had a chance to look at it. But they make it very clear, nothing in this section shall be construed to require contractors or awarding authorities to award contractors subcontracts, or to make purchases of materials or equipment from minority business contractors or minority business subcontractors who do not submit the lowest responsive bids or bids. So, you know, we've already got, you're required to make the effort, the outreach effort. You're not required to take it into account, and not only are you not required to, you may not take it into account in the awarding of the contract. So I think that the idea behind this statute is just for us to show that, yes, we have made the outreach effort to ensure that everybody gets a chance to apply for the work. And as Mr. Perry had pointed out earlier, you know, that if you look at the new case law from the Supreme Court, it's not actually that new on awards of contracts. You can't consider it. You get points for it. You can't do anything for minority business participation. But you do have to make the outreach effort.
I believe that this is and I probably believe that your colleague, Mr. Kromke, would disagree with you or assessment.
Probably would.
He had suggested that we put a simple non-discrimination clause, and that's why I inserted it in here. We don't need to be doing this, given the general holding of the Harvard and North Carolina cases, and some of the far-ranging effects of the, if you read it, you know, of their conclusions in the opinion. I think it's, you know, giving it any, not considering it and awarding it, but even making it part of a factor in how we advertise our things. It seems to me that it violates that ruling, and stuff that violates the Constitution, when laws that violate the Constitution of the United States we are not only not obligated to follow, but we have a duty to not follow, because we all took oaths up here to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. So that's my position on this.
I'd like to make a motion, sir.
I motion that we accept the changes that, that I recommended. However, I don't mind Ms. Sutton's version either necessarily. Can we discuss Ms. Sutton's version versus, I'd rather, I'm not completely opposed to Ms. Sutton's. I'm completely opposed to keeping it the way it is. So.
And I did, B, under my version, does use your language that you have, that you replaced, so I do have your language in B.
And it doesn't seem, it seems like you're informing all businesses about the business and not necessarily making sure that this minority group gets in it. So actually, Mr. Barnes, have you discussed this with, have you read this? What is your opinion of this?
Honestly, what I'm looking at or thinking about is I don't want to put our staff in a position where they have to choose between mom and dad, right? So mom and dad are fighting. The state has one law, the board has a different policy. With things that are changing so rapidly, I don't know why you wouldn't table this for a month or two and see whether or not the state changes their regulations before you guys jump ahead of that, because it could change. There are several bills and laws that are in the Senate right now that could impact on this. And so I don't know if I wouldn't.
Again, I just would probably be with you that I don't want to risk the Doge team's going to come on and hit us with this. So, I mean, I'm okay. I just was wondering if you prefer Ms. Sutton versus mine.
Well, not to put the final point on it, yeah, but I also would recommend, if the state is, if this mirrors exactly what the state law is, I don't know why you wouldn't just leave it alone. Ashley, is there a reason why you think is yours still complete the requirements of both?
No, so my version doesn't include the requirements that the attorney spoke to. However, as you said at the beginning of the meeting, I would still have to do reporting. So even if we change the policy, I would still have minority state reporting I would be required to provide. However, it wouldn't be part of our board policy.
I think that puts Ashley in an uncomfortable situation.
I think I'm going to take, we don't have a motion on the table as far as I know. I'm going to make a motion that we table this for a month.
Second.
So that we can go ahead and hear and really get this worked out, because I'm hearing different things. So we have first and second. Any further discussion on tabling 9125 for a period of 1 month until the April committee meeting.
Well, there's no rush, and I would prefer to listen to the lawyer and our finance person.
Yeah, we'll bring it back and we can
Yeah,
table it
we can
again
do
if we
that,
need to.
yeah.
Okay. All right, any discussion? If not, all in favor of tabling 9125 until next meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. 9125 is tabled.
I think we are now on section 5 of the agenda.
We are in 1310. We'll open that up. Don't follow me. We are on page
126?
126. Thank you, Ms. Justice. 126, please. 126. I don't have a 126. Oh, the second section.
Whew, 134?
126, section 2. All right.
I think we have a,
26.
on page 134,
Yep.
we delete sexual orientation and gender identity and replacing the biological sex in parenting status.
Okay, deleted gender orientation, sexual orientation, and gender identity. All right. And as we heard from our attorney, biological sex covers that.
Trying to think what
Then again, on page 138, this is where I wanted Dr. Barnes to look at this. Is this our, am I in the right one?
134, I think is where we're at.
134, and then again 138. We're deleting
Yeah,
gender
okay.
identity.
Yeah, okay.
Okay? Would you like to make a motion, sir?
Yeah, I'd like to make the motion that we accept the suggested change.
Amended motion. I'll second that. Any discussion?
Yeah, I like it the way it is. I don't see why we have to be playing games with these terms.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, all in favor of bringing this onto the whole board for their discussion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Opposed?
Passes 2-1.
The next one.
We have a question.
Mr. Blanchard, if that is removed, is that going to put us sideways with any federal law?
Well, the sexual orientation and gender identity part, I don't, because you've already got the word sex in there. Personally, I think you're probably safer leaving it just as sex rather than throwing the word biological in front of it. And the reason I say that, again, Title IX, for example, non-discrimination on the basis of sex. Title IX is not entitled non-discrimination on the basis of biological sex. It's just sex. You know, it's and I honestly believe Title IX probably should be construed different from Title VII for a whole bunch of reasons, including the fact that the statute in multiple occasions uses the word one sex and the other. But, be that as it may, the word sex is inclusive enough. It's a big enough umbrella to cover everything we need. I think you're probably doing something you don't need to do that may or may not be problematic later by throwing the word biological in front of it. But
Yeah, I just think that the court cases out there, like you mentioned, have differentiated these Title IX situations from the Title VII cases from Bostock, but you mentioned when it comes to employees. Here, federal courts have ruled that this language is, and that's why they stopped all the Biden Title IX implementation even before President Trump was inaugurated. So I believe there's a lot of confusion around language, and I think we need to use precise language and not be vague about it. And that's what we're talking about, is biological sex. You know, maybe, you know, when this was written, yeah, I mean, nobody needed to say that. But in today's world, what is sex? What is gender? I mean, basically back then, sex and gender were synonymous terms, no longer. I think we need to be specific.
To be clear, I just wanted, I don't want to put us at odds with the Grimm case, is my concern. That, and I think the handout that Ms. Bradford handed out at the last meeting pointed out, you know, that the group that she attends the video conferences for, that was their view of it also, is that, look, the Fourth Circuit's at odds with the current administration on this. The problem is, if we go to court, the judge there is bound by what the Fourth Circuit says in Richmond, not what the Trump administration says on this narrow issue. That's my only concern with it. I don't want to put us at odds with that.
Well, and if you would, please bring that to the full board, and we'll bring it, because obviously we'll be discussing this. Again, I'm going to reiterate that, you know, we don't make the final decision on any of these, so we'll bring it to the full board. Please bring that point up, and I will call on you to bring that point up, so I'm going to actually star that. And we will address the word biological there. So I will keep a note for myself. All right, carrying on.
Did we, point of inquiry, did we vote affirmative on that?
We did.
Okay.
Yes, we did. It was 2-1.
Okay.
It's passed on to the whole board.
Move on to the next one.
17, 20, 40, 30, and 72,
What
35.
page are we on?
Ms. Justice? Page
Oh, it's on 156.
156.
156.
That's right.
This is a huge
You
handout.
can tell
today.
teachers,
Right.
I'm glad we worked,
we know how to do
we
this.
worked together as a team. All right. Title IX, non-discrimination on the basis of sex. All right. We have several changes. Again, adding the word biological in there, parenting status, deleting the word sexual orientation, and gender identity. All we have is changes. And we do have a change at the end, deleting other references, enforcement of Title IX, the education amendments of 1972, respect to discrimination based on sexual orientation, gender identity in light of
Postdoc. So this is Title IX, so I think that's, I think we could leave.
Department of Education, Office of Civil Rights, 2021.
I know you're making.
Why don't we start with Mr. Perry?
Yeah, so, most of these are just, again, it's the same term, biological sex, so we can be clear what we're talking about. We moved sexual orientation and gender identity and put in parenting status, because the last bit was just probably was an assumption the last time this was modified, which apparently was in 2022, that Bostock did apply to Title IX, but we've been heard from other federal courts that it doesn't. So it just removes those references from the bottom.
And, Mr. Chairman, again, my concern is that the courts that are saying that aren't in the Fourth Circuit. We are. I can tell you when you go, and the appellate body for us, for federal courts, is the Fourth Circuit. Now, their rule, it may be wrong, but it's the rule right now. I'm looking at Title VII. The statute says, no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, and it goes on about the educational programs. But the point I'm making with that is that it doesn't use the qualifier biological in the statute. And adding parenting status, great idea. You know, you can always expand the scope of what types of discrimination you're opposed to, but that term, sex, you're probably better off leaving it the way it is and letting that ambiguity play itself out rather than us trying to make a decision on it. We're fine for, the last 65 years with the term sex in there. I'm not quite sure why we need to add the qualifier biological now, but that's my view.
I got you.
Sir?
And I understand that the Title IX federally has determined that it doesn't cover gender identity, but gender identity and sexual orientation are two significantly different things. Does Title IX still cover sexual orientation?
Under Grimm, for us, yes. Now, for other parts of the country, not so much.
Because I don't want it, those are not synonyms of each other.
And I'm trying to think how to tease those two terms out. I mean, I think about the Grimm case, obviously it's about the student born as one sex who identified, and I don't know whether it's identified or whether they view that as gender or identity. I'm not quite sure what term they use, but I think we're all, to laymen, thinking about the same thing.
But they're not the same.
They're
I
not.
understand. I get that,
But I
but
guess does the Title IX non-discrimination on the basis of sex at the federal level still cover sexual orientation? or
yes,
not?
in our, well,
Because I
I'm
get
trying
the
to
executive
think.
orders, I've got.
Sexual orientation wasn't the issue in the Grimm case. It was really more gender identity or identifying as male versus female. They never got into whether the Grimm child was gay, straight, or something other than that. It was about gender identity. As far as I can tell, yes, it does if you're construing it that way. The Fourth Circuit is construing it the same way they view Title VII, which I think may be wrong, but that's the way it's being construed.
Okay, the big question, Mr. Justice?
That's right, he's our lawyer.
No, you have your hand up.
Yeah, but seriously, I think we're actually harming and insulting our children when we leave out the term sexual orientation. What are we doing here? I mean, seriously, I have stressed over and over again how much harm has been done already to so many segments of our society over the years, and we're getting better. Why are we going backwards? As far as the sex and the gender you identify with, that's a whole other thing. That too is science. But the sexual orientation part, that shouldn't be removed. That's just wrong. And that does reflect in our community. When they hear things like that, they're thinking, you're not supporting our kids. You're not supporting our families.
We are talking about Title IX here, okay? We're talking about, and that's what this basically, the whole thing covers. Nobody's going around saying that we should discriminate against somebody over sexual orientation. But these things that are mentioned, at least in common linguistic terms, or when they were originally written, meant something inherent. It wasn't about who you prefer to sleep with. It was about what sex you were, what the consequences of of a natural consequence of your sex, which in the case of women was you could have a baby and you could be pregnant. And that's just a fact of being a woman. And a childbirth. That stuff was originally in there. So those kind of immutable characteristics that we're covering here. We are not talking about we want to go around and, disrespect people who are homosexual. That's their choice. And I'm not here trying to, disrespect any of our students based off their sexual orientation. But this particular policy has to do with Title IX. And it's more about immutable characteristics and the consequences of those immutable characteristics rather than, something that's only vaguely related.
My only concern is taking it out of the policy says that you can't. I mean, you're right, we shouldn't, you're right, we won't. But I guess we need to align to whatever the Title IX law says. And I have a new handy notebook of executive orders to keep track of the ones that are affecting education. And I'm looking at the one specifically about Executive Order 14168, which talks specifically about defending women from gender ideology, extremism, and restoring biological truth to the federal government. That covers gender identity, but it doesn't cover sexual orientation.
It does.
Did I miss it somewhere?
No, but I think it's like basically on what I was saying before. If you include sexual orientation, you're saying that sexual orientation is an inherent something. You're born this way. And that's just simply a biological fact or a scientific fact. It might be conjecture. People aren't necessarily born one way or the other or in the middle. I mean, there's environment and there's factors that come into play. I'm not saying anybody doesn't have a right to do it, but you see, by including in this in what's inherent and natural, you're putting it on the same level. And you know, not everybody believes that
It's not a belief, it's science.
that sexual orientation is determined at birth. Not every scientist will agree with you either.
Okay, he can say that all he wants, but the fact is the vast majority of scientists do say brains are wired in certain ways and people are born that way. It's not a choice. I worked with way too many human beings over many, many decades. Why would people choose to have that kind of misconstrued behavior in society and be treated as badly as they have historically by choice? It's not working. It doesn't work that way. You can have your opinion, but sir, that is an opinion.
I'm going to make a motion that we hold this in policy. I think that I would like to do some more investigation. I'd like to speak with our attorneys at length about this, which I have not done about this particular policy. So I'll make a motion that we hold 1720 in policy and discuss it when we have more time next month. Is there a second?
Second.
All further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Opposed.
Mr.
Passes
Wilkes,
2-1.
Mr. Chair, just to be clear, I'm not grousing about removing the deleted part. My suggestion is that you don't add the biological part. That's the issue I'm getting at, is that I think you should leave it as sex. And taking out the other part, completely up to you. It doesn't change the scope of the coverage. On the other hand, if you throw the word biological in, it does change the scope of the coverage.
Right, and I don't think we're going to come to a without, well, would you be amenable to the word biology?
No.
No, so I think that's why I'd like to have to think about it. We'll also hear from the full board on 1310 to see, because that will come up in 1310 for sure, whether we want to keep the word biological in or not, and then we can discuss 1720 at further length next month. So
that's moving to,
I'm sorry?
1720 is moving.
1722 is going to be held in
Right.
1720, 40, 30, and 7235 will be held
Okay.
in a 2-to-1 vote. 3540, Comprehensive Health Education Program.
I wrote these edits, but I certainly, we decided a lot at our last board meeting. This is why I asked Dr. Barnes to maybe have a look at this, see if I got it right, because based on what our decisions were at the last board meeting last Tuesday. So, did this summarize it well, or do you suggest some changes?
I'm sorry?
I had emailed you with these and asked you to have a look at this one, because I'm not as familiar with the details of the program as you are.
Well, let's go on.
I tried to summarize what I thought our decision was last Tuesday and how it affected our sex ed, you know, options. So I
if
sure
you
got
look-
some of this
if
wrong,
you-
so.
If you start on page 164,
Yeah.
that deleted section seems very similar to what is there, but that is contained in the Parent Bill of Rights regarding the health education program in kindergarten through fourth grade. So that is already covered in the Parent Bill of Rights. That's why it's in our policy.
And we voted to get rid of it at every grade level, and not just K to 4.
Well, I'm just, that's what that statement is there for. Yeah, please.
Go ahead.
I do have a policy update for this policy under section 6 of our agenda this evening. That, so I don't want those two things to get confused. Some of the things are
I'm
the
just
same
dealing-
changes but different. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of that.
I was fine.
Okay, which one's?
All right, can I make, I may require full majority, but I'll make a motion that we move this item to after your item.
I'll second that. All in favor of delaying the further discussion of 3540 until after, at the end of our meeting, please signify by saying it'll take a supermajority, which is, to us anyway. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So we'll move 3540 on down, but below, let's put it as I in the policy updates in the Hanover County Schools. All right, 4329, bullying.
This is one I worked on. It's the same
Same thing.
biological sex things that I know our esteemed attorney will disagree with. And in some terms there. And the only other thing really is, it was gender identity and those are the thrust of the minor word changes throughout. That's about it.
So we're going to take a 5-minute break to give Justice an opportunity. And for me to stretch my legs, 'cause that's what I need to stretch my legs.
May I make amendments to the motion?
Go ahead.
10 minutes.
Well, we only have...
8 minutes?
Yeah, all right, we'll go 8 minutes. All right, 8-minute break. All right, move fast. We're going to come back to order. Thank you for a little bit of break, but we do have several more policies to get through before the end of our meeting, so we'll go ahead and jump right back in. Thank you. Board members, two quick things, just a quick reminder, or not board members, excuse me, committee members. Don't forget there is a virtual, the NCSBA, I had that with me, so I just want to remind everybody, April 3rd and 4th is the virtual spring law conference.
Oh, good.
And also, not to tell anybody, but there's pictures in the back you might want to vote on before you leave today. You know. Anyway, we will carry on with policy 4329, 7311.
What page is that?
And what page is that? That is on the next page. Let's see.
169.
169.
169. Oh, we discussed this, but then I had already discussed this, but and then we took the break.
Yep. I would like to make a motion, because I think really the whole board needs to weigh in on whether we keep the word biological in or not. And I think that we already have policy, let me see here, 1310, which has the word biological in it. I mean, I think that it would make sense that we maybe delay this policy also, then we can address both policies together next month, and that way there we can hear from the full board if they want to leave the word biological in, which our attorney is saying he does not advise, or if they want not to use that word biological. So I'm going to make a motion that we put 43, 29, 73, 11. We hold that in policy until next month. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay. Discussion, sir?
Yeah, I understand perhaps the last one, because, but this one is I believe this, and I'm not saying that it isn't something that the full board needs to discuss,
Right.
but by us holding it, are we just not delaying this for another month before it can actually get passed by the full board, because we have to send it back? And again, concerned again that if we don't put the right language in here as soon as possible, that we could lose our funding. And wouldn't it be more prudent to send it along and then let the board decide? Because anybody at the board, if we send it along to the board with the biological sex one, then they could make a decision whether to include those revisions or not, and then at least it'll be in front of them, and we won't be wasting an extra month.
Ms. Justice?
Yeah, that word keeps popping up. I think we need to talk about it because it's probably in something else in here too. We need
Probably.
Yeah, so, all right, so we need to go ahead and decide on that as a board instead of wasting everybody's time and going back and forth every time. Let's just decide on that. I think that's a good idea. Also, gender identity. I'm very disturbed about some of the things I have heard today, and I want to protect our kids. We talk about safety. Just this bullying things alone scares the tar out of me. So we need to talk about not just biological sex, but gender identity. Why are we pulling this out and allowing this kind of discrimination to occur?
I would ask the chair to withdraw its motion and just send it along to the board, maybe not with our recommendation, but for them to consider it and make a decision on whether to use biological or not.
I will make a counter motion, or an amended motion, to pass it on to the board, but with the deletions, but using the word sex instead of biological sex. Is there a second? Hearing none. Okay, we'll go back to the original motion. We have a motion in front of us to hold it in policy. All in favor of holding it in policy, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed.
Nay.
Okay, so it is held in policy. 4329 is also held. Carrying on to 5440, advertising in schools. excuse me, 5240. I think I said 5440.
Want to make sure what page is that?
Be the next.
That's 184, I think.
This is one of mine as well.
184, yes, 185, actually. Deleting words sexual orientation and gender identity, and again, we have the word biological sex in there. Yeah, there it is again.
So we have to hold
And
that, then where did you put it?
parenting status. Mr. Perry, would you like to speak to it, please?
In this, again, this is pretty much the minimal changes, a couple of words in the gender identity, which we had, and the biological sex, but if I ask our, I just heard from our attorney that you could brief us on this, that you don't mind the word biological sex in this context?
Okay.
In this context, remember that my concern about the other policies is Title IX compliance. That concern's not present really here, only in the most attenuated manner, and it's not really a front and center. So, I mean, I don't see any real downside to this.
Okay.
Here, if you.
I can make a motion that we pass, that we suggested edit.
Okay, so this is 5240. I'll second that. Is there any discussion?
Oh, I'm not going to agree with that.
Okay. All in favor of bringing 5240 onto the full board for discussion and possible vote as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
Carries 2-1. Operation of school nutrition. Carrying on to a couple pages later. All right, that is page 192. And again, we are putting in the word biological sex and deleting parenting status. Excuse me, no, adding parenting status, deleting sexual orientation and gender identity. Mr. Perry, can you speak to this?
It's more of the same. I suggest that we take it, I would ask our attorney if he has any opinion on the use of biological sex in this particular context.
I'm trying to think, obviously, since that is a school program, my preference would be to leave it at sex, but, you know, again, I think the odds of that becoming a legal problem for you are exceedingly low.
Okay.
I don't see anybody being denied school lunch because of their gender identity, so.
Okay. Make a motion?
I make a motion to adopt the suggested changes.
Okay, 6220, I'll second that. Any
Oh.
discussion, Ms. Justice?
Yeah, what's with the deleted sexual orientation and gender identity? I mean, this is really getting heavy here. Sexual orientation should be, that's a right. I mean, Supreme Court's already ruled on these things. Why are we discriminating against this group of our students? This is appalling.
I believe our attorney has spoken to that the word sex would cover all that. Am I correct? Sir?
Sex would cover, if we left it at sex, obviously it would cover whatever types of, just because the statute's written the same way. So whatever the Fourth Circuit or the U.S. Supreme Court says is included or not included is what's included or not included. But I don't think, if you believe that sexual orientation and gender identity are included in sex, then you're already covered by it. Otherwise,
It's two here, it's just to address Mr. Justice's point, you know, religion isn't in here either. Are we, just because it's not on the list, it means we're going to deny a kid a school lunch because of their religion? Of course not. I mean,
Maybe we should add it.
Okay, would you like to make a motion, sir?
I like to motion that we adopt the changes that suggested.
To the full board? Okay, I'll second 6220. Any discussion? All in favor of passing 6220 on to the full board, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Opposed?
File there. Okay. We're getting towards the end. We do have, board members, just to let you know, we have about 8 minutes left. We have several more policies. Let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then one we brought down, so 6. So we may need to extend if that's amenable to everyone. But we will carry on at that point. Yes, ma'am?
Unfortunately, I have a child I have to pick up somewhere.
Okay.
At school.
Well, then,
You
we
guys
wanted-
can go on, and I'll just leave at 3. Is that okay?
Do you see any changes?
I don't see any changes in 7100.
Okay, so there's no changes in 7100, so we'll leave that alone.
Yes, 7100, again, Bostock, it's Title VII, Bostock, I think it's still controlled.
Okay, 7100 stays alone. I think we already had that. All right, so then we carry on to the policy from policy updates from NHCS 1310. Looking over to my left, there she is.
Hi, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So in 1310, under section D, number 12, the staff recommends striking My Life or Stepping Stones and just adding Family Life, since that will be the name of the new curriculum for middle school. And then also, I know in 1310, you all talked about this earlier, there was a different recommendation that was presented earlier regarding number 5 under section E5. We are recommending striking gender identity from the title and then just striking the word gender identity from the first paragraph under number 5 versus what was previously discussed today, which was to add, well, gender identity was not struck from the title on number 5 on the previous recommendation. However, the one that was presented earlier had an additional sentence added at the beginning that the staff is not recommending.
What page is that on?
221, sorry, I was looking at my own.
231.
And this is in response to the board's action.
You said 231? 221. Thank you. Slide doesn't jive with what I'm saying. Okay, 221, there we go. Student records, is that where we're at?
I'm looking at 221 right here. I'm looking at that way.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. All right, I make a motion that we follow Dr. Hamilton's recommendations, the staff's recommendations. Is there a second?
This is, I'm still trying to,
Page 221, Section 5 has instruction on sexual activity and sexuality, and then instruction on gender identity is crossed through, so it's eliminated. So the paragraph would read, instruction on sexual activities and sexuality will not be included in the curriculum provided in kindergarten through 4th grade, regardless of whether the information is provided by school personality or third party personnel.
I second. Didn't you?
I have a discussion.
Okay, go ahead.
In my version of this, correct me if I'm wrong, the board voted last Tuesday that this program needs to be opt-in versus opt-out.
Correct.
Is that included in this?
It is not a change. That was already, and that's in the other policy actually, but that was not a change. You were already at opt-in.
Yeah, we were.
So that part is not
Opt-in
changing in
prior
the
to,
policy.
And then it was.
Here it
Well-
is under section,
Okay, excused, sorry.
just a minute. C,
What page you on?
C4.
C4.
So I have my own, sorry.
Look at page 217, folks.
Thank you.
217.
Thank you. The page-
217. C4, there's your opportunities to withhold, opt out, opt in, withhold consent. But that's included in policy 3540 about opting in. That has not changed in your policy, so that's why there was not a recommendation for change.
It's always been, well, it hasn't always been, but in the last years, it's been opt-in versus opt-out.
My reading of it, my reading of 3540, of the existing 3540, seemed like it was opt-out. And if you read the language of the original, a section on that, it sounds like the parents would be notified and that they could opt out, but there was no specific opt-in. And that this would be sent out, and it said something to the effect of that the child would automatically be enrolled.
When students,
No, we decided that last Tuesday, but the policy as it is now, I think, said that. Unless, are we still talking about 3540 or a different one?
We are on 1310.
1310, the first one.
No wonder we're confused.
Okay. This is why they seem to be related, but they're not the same thing.
Right, they're not the same
Well,
one.
but to the point that Mr. Perry is making, if you look at page 217, what the board voted on a couple weeks ago, or was it only last week? It's only last week, it feels like longer.
Wow.
The board voted that our family life curriculum would have to be an opt-in program, correct?
it is. And in Power School, where they select, because I got it last week, basically they will select, yes, I want to participate in family life. No, I don't want my child participating. So
Right.
they're opting in or opting out. They're doing both.
But on page 217, it says at number 4, part of the annual notification described below, parents will be effectively notified that they may opt out of any of the following. And the family life for the sexual education curriculum is listed as an opt-out.
Because that's what's in general statute. At the bottom of page 218 is section D, so go to page 219. 218 at the bottom says parent permission required. Written parent permission is required prior to the following activities.
Thank you.
Turn to page 219, number 12. That would include growth and changes family life.
Thank you.
So the section 4 is alerting them of their opportunity to withhold consent or opt out.
Got
And the
it.
next section goes into greater detail on these are the things your permission is explicitly required.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, well, I think I have a motion on the table to accept the staff's recommendation for policy 1310. Is there a second?
I guess second.
Thank you. All right, there we go. All in favor, or any further discussion? I've got to do it right. If not, all in favor of passing 1310 on to the full board, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Is that three?
I'm not voting.
You're not opposed, okay, so that carries 3-0, and it is amended, so it's amended, 1310. Dr. Hamilton? Excuse me, what's that? I'm sorry, gotta stop. We are at the end of our time, so I would entertain a motion to, or I'll make a motion that we add 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 minutes. Can we do 10? You get 10?
We can do 10.
Okay.
I have to fly out of here then.
Okay, 10 minutes to our agenda today. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Any-
Aye.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, so we have 10 minutes. Dr. Hamilton, go.
Thank you.
Dr. Hamilton, show.
Thank you. Policy 3420, student promotion and accountability. On the first page, under B, second paragraph,
What page are you on, sorry?
225.
225, everybody, sorry.
Okay. Starting in the 24-25 school year, there is a new general statute, 115C, 15810, requiring career development plans for students, and students cannot be promoted from 8th grade until that is developed, and then cannot be promoted on thereafter until it is reviewed again. And so with that said, when I reviewed this policy, I noticed that section B was elementary and middle school promotion standards, and in the second paragraph, all that through was all related to secondary high school. So I have moved that onto the next page under high school, and I just added the general statute language in there that you have to have that plan, and I moved that to that so that that aligns with the new general statute. And then 2 more pages over, under I, credit recovery, we do have a new state board policy that will also go into effect in the 25-26 school year. That is graduation policy 009. And graduation policy 009 no longer lets us give pass-fail for high school credit recovery courses. You can only give a PF if it is a non-graduation required class. So we had to change the pass-fail for credit recovery to a numerical decision, and the staff has made the decision, as have other school systems in the state, to make that a 60-59. So if you pass, you get a 60, which is the lowest passing grade, and then if you do not, you get a 59, which is the highest fail grade.
I make a motion that we accept the documentation or the policy corrections as made by the staff.
A second.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, all in favor of passing the amended 3420 to the board, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed. Like sign. 3540. Dr. Hamilton.
Thank you. 3540 is the Comprehensive Health and Safety Education Program in response to the board's decision the last time we met. On page 235, second paragraph, we are recommending to strike gender identity. Under section B, we are recommending taking out in the NHCS Family Life Education Program is offered through grades 6 through 8, because we used to offer 2 and now we are only going to be offering 1 program. Then on page 236, second paragraph, permission from parents or guardians in grades 5 through 8 shall be received prior to their child's participation in family life, in the Family Life Program. So we added that and marked out the placement into the following gender, sex, sexual orientation, LGBTQ+ inclusive language education programs. And then again, made the reflective change to grades 6 through 8, Family Life being the one choice versus having 2 choices there as was previous. And then on that same page, right above letter C, you will see that we have marked out any parent wishing to withhold consent must do so in writing to the principal or their designee, because we felt that for them to have to opt in anyway, that didn't make sense. So we marked that out.
I'll make a motion that we accept the staff's recommendation for changes to policy 3540. Is there a second?
Second, but discussion.
Discussion?
Which day is fine. I just want to, we had some letter in, this is probably a good time to look at my version, which is on page 165, and you have to compare. And I think most of what they're, one of the things that we discussed and I think that we voted upon is that, that this would be, since it is opt-in, that some kind of a form would be sent to the parents. And also, we also discussed that parents should have the ability to opt out of certain topic areas. And I believe we decided that. So they would have out of certain lessons.
Yes, I don't lost your page now. Above C, 236, there's a paragraph beneath grade 5, grade 6, and 8. That section, it says the parents can, next to last sentence, excused from participating in any part of the entire sex education portion of the health education curriculum. So they can also opt out of portions if they so desire.
Right. So I think my version just makes it clear that we're going to put this on the form that we send over to parents. Like, here's the lesson plan, and you can mark it off.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just want us to recognize as educators the burden that puts on teachers to every day sort of mix and match all of our curriculum. I think if a parent has a specific concern, as every other thing in the curriculum, they should go to the principal and address it that way.
So we're gonna wait for them to object before we allow them to opt out?
Yeah, why wouldn't, what?
So when the parent makes the decision to opt in, they've already had the opportunity to go to the principal's office and review all the lessons in the curriculum. So then when they have to either opt in or opt out in Power School. They have to do one of those two things. So they opt in. And if they have any concerns about what may or may not be discussed or taught, they go to the principal's office, they review the curriculum, and then if they determine that they want to opt out of a particular lesson, they inform the principal.
But you gotta go to the office to do this, or?
Yes, sir. We do not post our curriculum online.
No, no. It seemed like, at least with the stepping stones before, a lot of it was sent home, and that informed them of this, and gave them some ability to set it back if you want to opt out kind of thing. This was the prior mode, or at least for stepping stones anyway. If you read the old language that's in there now, it seems to indicate that. So we're getting away from saying inform home parents on this?
He wants to know, are we sending a form home for them to opt in or out? How are we doing that?
They typically get that when they enroll in the spring for the next year. But this year, since the board was in the middle of a decision, the middle schools are going to give that information to parents at open house for them to make that decision at open house.
And then at that opportunity, then they could discuss further if they need to, so that if they're already going to be there at that point.
Well, on the
That's
first day of
correct.
school, they don't show up for open house.
Well, if we're requiring opt-in, I think we need to send it home to every parent, whether they're at the open house or not.
Well, that's what I was just joking about. They'll get home, believe me.
They
will
still
get
send the
home.
materials
Well,
home. If you don't come to open house, the materials are sent home on the first
Yeah.
day of school with the children.
Yeah.
We do have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? If not, all in favor of passing 3540 on to the full board for their review, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? I'm going to say that passes 3-0. And that's amended, so it's under the amended group. We're at 4440.
4440 starts on 239,
Sorry?
and,
Oh, 239. I got you.
okay.
Just a question,
240,
because this is, I wanted to know, so this is state law now that we can't, you sent that to me. I want to make sure everybody knew that this is now state law.
Whoa.
It is the North Carolina State Board of Education Graduation Policy 009. This also takes effect next school year, 25-26. That we used to use FF for students who didn't have a passing grade and had X amount of absences. FF may only use for a student who does not have a passing grade now, but also has significant absences.
Oh,
I just, get you, Ms. Justin, one time, I just, I know we're trying to get kids to come to school, we want kids to come to school, and I think it's gonna kick ourselves in the tail on this one, because, as a former principal, I don't agree with, yeah, okay, show up for 2 days, 3 days, and as long as you pass, you pass. So, anyway, Ms. Justice.
yeah, I have to leave, unfortunately, but I'm sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
it's my fault, I'm sorry.
Well, I totally agree with you, but if this is what we have to do because it's the law, then obviously I'll vote for it.
But to all of our lifelong educators' point, this does not alleviate the requirement, the legal requirement for attendance in school. Mandatory attendance is still a general statute.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we should, and maybe it's illegal, so, and if it is illegal, you used to just have, you or the principal used to have discretion in these matters, correct? You could see if they were out ill for legitimate reasons, or there was a death in the family, you could take account of that.
Of course.
And now you're, or if you knew that you're just blowing off class, then you know the difference. And, you would want to, obviously, if you passed the course and you have legitimate excused absences, then you probably want to pass them. But now you were talking about passing them regardless, even though they're just not showing up, and they figured they passed, half there's no way I can fail now, so I'm gonna blow off the last week and a half of school. I mean, we used to have when I was in school, what was it, senior skip day, well, times that by a couple of weeks.
Just to our attorney, so a state board policy, we have to follow.
Obligated to
Yep.
follow.
Okay. All right, so I'll make a motion, we pass 4,400 as amended onto the full board. Second? Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Congratulations.
Yeah, me too. Agrees on that one. I think that is the end of our agenda, am I correct? Did we get through? Did I do it? Did we do it?
And honestly, all the trees here, which I love, use them, but I need this one.
We'll recycle it.
Yeah.
It's just, these are so complex, I hate this too, but I can't do it without it, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
Trees are a renewable resource.
I am going to.
Landfill space is not.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, I'll make the motion then. All right, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all. We got it done. I did think.